What's going on, you guys? So the beef between Floyd Mayweather and Roy Jones Jr. continues. I'm sure all you guys by now have seen, the back and forth between the two, and this all started, initially because Floyd Mayweather, said some things about Muhammad Ali and him not viewing Muhammad Ali as the GOAT, as a lot of other people do, because of him losing to a guy with 10 or 11 fights, taking endless amounts of punishment throughout his career that ultimately led him to not really be able to speak later on in life, right? So Roy Jones Jr. took offense to that, and he said, I'm not putting Floyd Mayweather in my top 5 because he doesn't respect the GOAT, Muhammad Ali, right? And, these type of little comments have been over the past few years. And then I think at the Hall of Fame speech with Pacquiao and Jones, Roy Jones, said some comments that probably rubbed Floyd Mayweather the wrong way, and Floyd Mayweather responded by posting a video of him watching Roy Jones Jr. get knocked out multiple times throughout his career. All right, so today I was watching the Ak and Barak podcast, and they had Roy Jones Jr. on there, and Roy Jones took the opportunity to try to crap all over Floyd Mayweather's resume, right? Saying he fought Shane Mosley, Oscar De La Hoya, and Manny Pacquiao when they were old, and that he's never fought anybody at the level of himself, right? Now, this is typical casual boxing fan argument type of talking points that Roy Jones Jr. said, right? I posted a YouTube short. I posted 2 of them. Floyd Mayweather 5 years prior to him fighting Shane Mosley, and 2 to almost 3 years prior of him fighting De La Hoya, right? He called both of them out before he was even at 147 pounds. It was right after the Bruce Seeley's fight, and he wanted both of them. They shifted telecom to Roy Jones Jr. and biased Jim Lampley, and they're talking down on both of those potential fights for Mayweather, saying if I'm Oscar De La Hoya or Shane Mosley, I'm not giving Mayweather the opportunity. And Roy Jones went on to say, yeah, it's kind of a stupid fight for either one of them to fight Mayweather. It's a lose-lose type of situation, unless he, brings in a bunch of money, right? So he was bashing on the fight then, before, he had fought him. Years and years prior to when those fights actually happened, Roy Jones didn't want to see him. Instead, he insisted on him fighting Zab Judah, which he ended up fighting Zab Judah, and he still got criticism for that. Fast forward to today, he's slamming Mayweather for fighting Mosley, De La Hoya, and Pacquiao later on in their careers when they're out of their prime, right? Now, when he fought Mosley was coming off of possibly one of the biggest wins of his career, where he destroyed Antonio Margarito, and then he fought Mayweather and got outclassed. De La Hoya didn't want the fight until later on, and Mayweather moved up to 154 pounds to fight him, under every one of Oscar De La Hoya's demands. He fought Pacquiao years later because Pacquiao didn't want to do Olympic drug-style testing. He didn't want the needles in his arms the day of the fight. After the fight, he was afraid of needles. But turns out the night of the fight, when he fought Mayweather, he wanted a shot of Toradol in his shoulder to kill the pain, which doesn't make any sense. If you're afraid of needles, why would you want a needle injected in you the night of the fight? It doesn't line up, right? So Roy Jones is really coming across as a bitter hater for Floyd Mayweather. And I watched Jeff Mayweather, do a little interview, I believe, with Fight Hype, and he pretty much said that the reason Roy Jones and these guys are hating on him is because they are jealous. Floyd Mayweather went 50-0 in his career. 49-0 if you don't want to count the Conor McGregor fight. He beat the most world champions throughout the course of a career than anyone. He never lost. He never got embarrassed. He never got knocked out. And he made the most money any fighter has ever made. I don't know of a more successful career than Floyd Mayweather's. If you want to look at accolades, if you want to look at accomplishments, if you want to look at just, how much money a fighter made, no one touches Floyd Mayweather. And what Jeff Mayweather was saying is, since he did all these things, there's many reasons for people not to like Mayweather or hate on him. But he embarrassed Roy by, exposing those knockouts on that video, right? Those were embarrassing for Roy Jones Jr. And Roy Jones has nothing else to say. He can't say anything to Mayweather because none of those things happened to him. Instead, he's taken the opportunity to try to bash on all of Mayweather's accomplishments and all of the people on his resume. But, I mean, the crappy thing is this. A lot of the things can be said about Roy Jones, right? What elite fighters, right? And I'm not trying to diminish Roy Jones because I think Roy Jones is one of the greatest of all time. But a lot of criticism he got during his career was the level of competition that he was up against. Yes, he beat a young James Toney, and yes, he beat a young Bernard Hopkins, but James Toney was an impressive one, but that was a boring fight. Bernard Hopkins wasn't quite, Bernard Hopkins at that point. He was very young. But if you fast forward to later on in his career, yes, he beat John Ruiz, but then he drained himself back down to, I think, 168 or 175, can't quite remember, and he got knocked out by Tarver. Before that, it was a very controversial decision. A lot of people thought Tarver could have won that fight. And then, he ended up getting knocked out by Glenn Johnson. Later on, he loses to Bernard Hopkins. Then he loses to Joe Calzaghe. He lost some meaningful fights toward the tail end of his career. So, I mean, I say all that to say a lot of the same criticism that people want to say about Floyd could be applied to Roy Jones Jr. But you can't knock Mayweather for not taking those fights, or for taking those fights later on in those guys' careers when he was wanting them earlier on in the career. And then when he called him out, Roy Jones said those fights were stupid. They were stupid back then, and you don't want to give him credit for, the fights later on because his opponents were older. He was actually older than Manny Pacquiao the night he fought him. Right? It's not his fault. Shane Mosley had a toothache and didn't want to fight Mayweather, and Oscar De La Hoya just didn't want to fight him either. So you can't have it both ways. You can't bash him for wanting the fight when both of those guys are in their prime, and and then bash him for taking the fights later on when those guys are older. There's no way for Floyd Mayweather to get any credit in the eyes of Roy Jones Jr. And this is why I'm saying that he sounds like a hater. So let me know what you guys think. What's your guys' take on all of this, back and forth between the two? And let me know what you guys think. Hate, like, comment, subscribe.